Testing. Testing. Hello? Yes, you can hear me now? Okay. Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Are you guys okay in the back to start? Okay to start? I think they're streaming. Okay? Okay. Hi, I'm Nalini Elkins with the IETF mentoring team. And today we're going to talk about an interesting topic, why the unwritten rules and values. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing here, where we're at IETF. And feel free to go ahead and come up to the microphones if you guys would like and discuss what we're talking about. Everything else in the IETF, this is a collaborative effort, and it's good to discuss what we all think. The reason that I did this presentation is because as a part of the mentoring program, I get people who have, I suppose, they have interesting questions and viewpoints. And sometimes I have one guy come up to me and say, I don't think my draft is proceeding because I'm not part of an inner group. There's a drinking party that happens on one of the nights of the IETF. It's kind of a tradition, as you might expect in a group like this. And he thought, well, I never got an invitation to that party, and so maybe I'm not in the inner circle, and that's why my draft doesn't proceed. I actually fell asleep and forgot to go to the drinking party. And so I don't think that has anything to do with why your draft proceeds or not. So that's the reason that I started doing this presentation, is to really start the conversation with some of the old timers, and also to talk to the new people about really what are we doing here anyway. And now, some of it is thank you. Thanks. Some of it is what you might call aspirational. What aspirational means is that we want things to be fair in the world, and we want to all speak the truth at all times. Those are our values, and sometimes we fall short. So what I'm going to talk about is how I and a number of other people think we should be at the IETF, and what the IETF is for, and how can you, especially as new people, become to learn to understand this very unique environment. Okay, so and I'm also going to give you some examples of things that haven't worked, which is good to know. It's good to know what didn't work in an environment. And again, please feel free to jump in and say something if you want to. So let's first talk about what the heck we're doing here anyway. And I'm going to take something from Fred Baker, who's one of the former chairs of the IETF. What he said is, we are here to solve problems in the internet. What a lot of people might think is, well, what the IETF does is produce RFCs. And so we're here to produce RFCs. Well, yes, in the end, at some point, one would like to have standards. But it's all much more complicated than that. what can happen is that somebody sees a problem, and they even maybe start hallway conversations about a problem. Maybe then it goes to a barb off, and then maybe a working group is started. And in the end, things come out. It's much more nuanced than we produce RFCs. In fact, I've had some people say, I'm going to gauge the value of my efforts by how many RFCs my company or my country can create. And to me, I think that's quite misguided, because it may be much better to have one line in one RFC, which is a seminal idea, than 10 RFCs which are never adopted by anyone and which are not particularly well thought out, if that makes sense to you. So as I say, we're going to go to a very different way of looking at things than what sometimes maybe people look at. So the IETF has a shared vision. The shared vision is to make the internet the best that it can be. Going forth, okay, when you talk about evolution, when you have in nature and evolution creates new functions, and so you adapt to the environment, and slowly you become a better organism. How can anybody do that for the internet? Well, we have to do that. We have to help the internet adapt to its environment. How do you do that? You do that with constant innovation. That's why the whole idea of innovation and collaboration is such a very, very important part of being at the IETF. And of course, I personally think that the internet has provided a forum for much of the world to come together and be a participant. It's a disruptive idea in the world, and I think we can probably all agree on the value of free and open communication. And if that's what we're supporting, that's a very, very important thing to do. And you can see why we all have to collaborate. If you just look at things like electrical systems, every time you go to some different country, there's a different electrical system that has to be plugged into. You have to think about what adapter and so on. If the internet worked like that, well, it couldn't. It couldn't work like that. And so we have to work together. And so that's why I say it's a very, very important thing. Thanks. It would be an important thing if anybody heard it. No, it's a very important task that we're doing here. And so that's the shared vision that I think we all have. And so the rules and values that I'm going to talk about is, if something that you're doing is seen as threatening this core vision, you're going to get feedback from people. You're going to get people thinking that you're doing the wrong thing. And it's almost, people don't even know why they're reacting to you that way, but I've definitely seen it. And I'm going to go through and talk to you about a number of very concrete examples in which I saw this happen. Kind of a, do this, don't do that. But as I said, I want to give you the overall picture, okay? On the other hand, if you're doing something that supports the core vision of the IETF, which is, again, collaboration and innovation in support of the internet, then even if what you're doing is quite radical, in the sense that it's never been done before, you'll get a lot of support. And I can speak to that personally. With the mentoring program, we've tried all kinds of very new things that no other organization ever does, including, for example, like this. And I have gotten huge amounts of support from lots of people to go through and talk about these kinds of things and do these activities because it supports our core vision. Okay, so the IETF is not just an RFC mill. Of course, in the end, you want to have something that is written and that is a standard in the end. Whether that happens in 2 months, 3 months, 5 years, that's a different story. You may also be involved in commenting on somebody else's work to make that better. That is wonderful. That's what we need. It may be somebody else's idea that you're helping to improve. That's called teamwork and collaboration. It's very, very valuable. So what people feel is that I'm going to write an RFC and that gives me prestige and importance. I want, all these things after my name. Well, the real prestige is actually solving the problem. The problem of security on the internet, the transport layers. That's the actual problem, and that's the prestige. And as I say, that's the shared vision. Okay? So you may say that the IETF has faults, and I can point out to you 500 faults that the IETF has. But one of the things that it also has is it tries to fix them. You have open communication where people try to fix the faults. And if you think there's something wrong, speak up. Let's see if we can fix it. I think that's very, very important. But do not forget that a very small number of people have created and continue to create the innovation that supports the internet. I was joking around with somebody at the last IETF at the welcome party, and he said, you know what? If somebody put a bomb right here and blew up the welcome party for the IETF, in 6 months, a great deal of the innovation on the internet would stop. That's true. That's true. A very small number of people have supported what we know as this very important thing called the internet. And how? It's because, and one of the reasons why it works that way is because of the unspoken rules of the IETF. One of the very first things somebody told me when I came to the IETF and I wanted to see how to make my way, he said, the IETF is a community. You give back to the community and they will give back to you. Don't just think about what you want. And I took that very, very much to heart, and I think that's true. And some of the things I'm going to talk about are things that we don't talk about as engineers. I'm going to talk about things like trust. And so as I say, I'll tell you a little story. There's a story about a Russian physicist. He lived in a time when people did not talk openly in Russia about what was going on in the political system, and so people were afraid to talk. And so one day, in his group, he talked openly in his apartment with his friends about exactly what he felt. And the next day, he found the solution to a physics problem that he had been working on. And so it seems very odd. What does trust have to do with physics? And what does trust and safety have to do with computer systems? Well, it does. I don't know how. I don't think any of us know how. But that feeling of trust and community makes it possible to do innovation in a way that I don't think any of us know how. And I would love to hear some of the old timers talk to this too. I know in my own startup, we have a lot of trust with each other. We're very vulnerable about what we know, what we don't know, and it allows us to do a lot of innovation. So let's talk concretely about some of the values of the IETF. Well, what are these values? Do your own work. The IETF very much, how do I say, believes in having your own thoughts. They may be half-formed. They may not be completely the final thing, but do your own work. And I'm going to talk to you about doing your own work. And even if it's kooky or weird, do it, try it, and learn from others, take feedback. Then the next thing, do really good work. That's very, very important. It sounds like, why would somebody even have to say that to me? Well, I'm going to show you examples of where people did not do their own work, nor did they do really good work. People are not, how do I say, people know. People know when you know what you're talking about, when you've spent a bunch of time thinking about the packet flow in a particular area, when you know exactly what this flow is and what the problem is. People can tell. They can tell. Do really good work. And as I said, I'm going to give you a methodology for how you might do really good work. And you will get a lot of respect. Have it work in reality. That means it shouldn't just be a theoretical construct. This is something people are going to put on their real networks. So if you can have running code, that's very, very good and important. Or if you can have a real example, even prototype code to start with, very, very important. Have it work for everybody. That's one of the big important things about being here, is you'll get feedback, from all over the world about whether this particular thing works for them or not. And that's very, very important to see, because you may have your own viewpoint, but you don't think, how is it going to work in Latin America? How is it going to work in India? And so when others tell you, that's very important. And work with others for the good of the community. As I say, we've talked about that a bunch already. Be honest. Again, as I say, sometimes I feel like, what am I, everybody's mother? I mean, this seems like things that you tell your children, but but so much of the time, it's not, as I said, I'm going to give you example after example where it's so not true. And it's like, I kind of feel like, why do I even have to say this? But because of my experience with IETF and the mentoring program, I'm here saying it, is don't lie, because people will find you out and then your name is ruined. People will tell you. Be transparent. What transparent means is don't try to hide things. If you have results that are like 80%, just say it's 80%. Don't say, oh, it's a little bit less than 100%. I mean, just say, and then say what didn't work, what did work. We're equal. I'll talk about that some more. This is a non-hierarchical organization. Having said that, I mean, there are, of course, working group chairs, area directors, and so on. But by and large, everybody's opinion should be equal to everybody else's. Of course, some people know more, and so their opinion is to be more highly regarded. But just because you think somebody is older than you, or for women, if somebody is a man or vice versa, their opinion is not better necessarily for those things. If they know more, yes, then their opinion is better. So, and the other thing is care. People can tell when you don't care about what you do. They can tell. And this is a very, very hard area. It takes a lot of effort. And if you don't actually love what you're doing, it's going to be very, very hard to stay in it for the long term. Again, this is exactly what I tell my teenage daughter. Pick something you actually love, because it's going to take you a long time. And people can tell, because most people here, they love what they do, and they can tell when you don't. And then the last thing, which I'm going to talk about a bunch, don't be afraid to be a kook. This is a kook is for the non-English speaker, is a weirdo. Don't be afraid to be very out there. Somebody that people laugh at because their ideas seem so silly. Don't be afraid to have silly ideas. Don't be afraid to have bad ideas, because you know what? It's only after having a lot of bad ideas and having fixed them that you get to have some good ideas. I'm a product developer. I cannot tell you how many unsuccessful products I've had. I'll stop there. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting do not do this kind of a thing. There was a group, and they took their work from somebody who had IPR on it. And it's okay. IPR means somebody else had a patent on a particular idea. It's okay to do that, but you have to give credit. You say, this person has a patent on this, and ideally you ask them to co-author. And so then it's very good that they co-author with you. These people didn't do that. They present somebody else's idea as their own. And it took a while for people to find that out. This is the thing of do your own work. People will find out. This is a very large community, a lot of very smart people. You think you're going to get away with it, you won't. And what happens then is when these people present, nobody says anything. I don't know, they get agenda time, but everybody is very quiet. And this is a very not quiet group. If you're in a meeting and you're presenting something and everybody is very quiet, either you're saying something, everybody really gets it and really agrees with you, which you hope, or they're like, I'm not wasting my time doing this. It's very, as I say, you don't want to be in the position where nobody's commenting on your work. And a lot of times when people don't comment on your work, it's because you've broken some kind of rule. Do really good work. And again, as I say, why would I say, it's like, not talking to teenagers, there is a group, a person, and in 3, 4, 5 different meetings of the same working group, they present very close to the same draft. It was obvious that very little thought and work had been put into that draft. And they keep doing it over and over again. And one of the things is, like, when there are people that you know to be experts, and some people you know to be, they're called icons of the IETF. You probably know some of these people. They sometimes have long gray beards. And if one of those people stands up and says to you, I suggest that there's a fundamental flaw in your work. If somebody says that to me, I sink into the ground in horrified shame that somebody of that stature would say something like that to me in a working group. So try to make sure that that does not happen. And if they're kind enough to say something like that to you, redo every single bit of that work and then talk to them afterwards. Say, what fundamental flaw? What is it that I'm doing so wrong? They will, if these people are often extremely kind, they will lay it out for you. Go to the working group chair, find out exactly what's going on. Say, why is there a fundamental flaw? They're being very kind to you by telling you this. Most people will sit quietly and not say a word. That is, if you get in a situation where people are not saying it, sitting there looking at their PCs, not saying a word, either you nailed it, you may have nailed it, but that could be after, if you've had lots of struggle for 2-3 years where everybody shot you down and you've come back and then they're quiet. Okay, you nailed it. But otherwise, you be very careful. But okay, so now how do you do really good work? Well, it takes a lot of time. You have to put the work into it. And it's a lot of different things. It's work and commitment. And some people have, around here, have, 30, 40 years of work on real networks. I mean, I fell in love with networks over 30 years ago. You know, so I mean, a lot of people have real hands-on experience working with this kind of stuff. So my personal opinion is to get very much hands-on experience. Look at packets, study them, look at the protocols, read the drafts, see if you can completely understand what's going on. Try to get a group. Whenever we're writing a new draft, we have a group and we meet weekly and to see exactly what's going on. And it would be great if we do this for people just to review drafts too. I'm considering that, starting part of that as a part of the mentoring program. You know, some groups to study, and we can do it in between drafts, you know, for different working groups. And let's just go through. Because one of the things that happens is that oftentimes people think, oh, I'm very smart. I'm the smartest person in my company. Oh, maybe I'm even genius. Okay, fine. But I can tell you from real life results that a team, a collaboration of people with even average intelligence can often beat a solitary genius, because they have different points of view, they can correct each other, they can support each other. It's a very, very important thing to have collaboration. Next, get feedback. Get feedback from other people. In every group, you'll find 2, 3, 4, 5 inner circle, the expert people. Go to them and say, look, tell me honestly, what do you think of this? When we were first starting out on our draft, I would make an appointment, you know, half an hour with each person at the IETF and just say, don't be afraid of hurting my feelings. Tell me exactly what's wrong. And actually, the people you really want to talk to, if somebody stands up and starts ripping your draft up in the meeting, great. Take them aside. So you know what? Let's have half an hour. You know, you tell me exactly what it is you think is wrong. And then, you know what? Listen, go back and fix it. Go back and fix it. You know, it just will make your work that much better to do that. Feedback is invaluable. Here's a possible path. And you know what? There's a draft too. There's an internet draft that I wrote that, you know, that has lots of these things, you know, right in there. So go through the process. See does your idea really fit into the working group? One of the things I've seen is that you may have a really good idea, but you're in the wrong working group, or the working group is going down a particular direction, and their focus is not really what you want to do. So talk it over with them, and people can be swayed too. You know, I know I've certainly been able to do that, is to sway the working group a little bit and then say, okay, your idea does fit in, it fits in this way, so that's very good. Again, get a team. Each person can work on a part of the thing, and then present. One of the things I've totally seen is people's presentation skills could really use some help. You know, make sure that people really understand. And I know sometimes if you have problems with language, I totally get that. you may want to collaborate with somebody else, and maybe with somebody else who has better language skills in a particular way. And if you want people to help review your draft who have better language skills, that's totally something people will do. And in fact, I know if you approach the mentoring team, I'm sure I can get mentors who will be happy to help you do that, or help you present in front of an audience. The more people really understand what you're doing, the better reaction that you'll have. Do it more than once. Maybe do it first in your local language. That way it's easy to understand. That way you get your ideas done. And, I wish the world was different. I wish we didn't present in English all the time. I don't know what to say. Yesterday I was at a get-together, and the people were presenting some of the things in Spanish, and I caught maybe 1 word out of 10. So, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. But that's the rules. That's how we're living right now. And then ask the experienced people to review. This is what I mean by doing your homework. Go in there, and if people know this person has done their homework better than anybody else, then you're liable to get a real good hearing. Again, this is something I tell my daughter. I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I will outwork anybody. I'll work nights, weekends, if I have to. I'll outwork people. And so then you manage to get something done. Again, honesty and trust are very important. Try not to be seen as having a private agenda. Now, okay, this is quote unquote, this is aspirational. I totally know that there are people who are coming in and they want to do something that their company wants. Yeah, okay, I get it. I know that. And sometimes what the company wants is for the best of the internet. So great, wonderful. Sometimes not so much though, not so much. But I will say that if you're seen as the kind of person, we call them shills, somebody who just talks about what the company wants rather than your own personal, technical, considered opinion, people will know that. People will know that, and people will take your word for exactly that. Especially when you change, when you go to a different company, and all of a sudden now you're saying something very different. It's like, what? Okay, anyway. So in this group, it's very important that you're seen as what you see is what you get. That means when you say something is what you truly believe. They may not agree with you. And it's totally fine not to agree. But it's not like, this is a very interesting group. It's like if you were in a group where you're doing a lot of diplomacy, you can count on that. What you're saying is not at all what you believe. It's maybe what your country believes or what you have to say. This is not that kind of group. If you, and people get into problems that way. And like, for example, this whole presentation, it's what I believe. People may agree, people may disagree, but it's what I believe to be true, and then people have respect for that. This leads into something else. There's a lot of people who feel that IETFers are very rude. Sometimes that can be true, and I've certainly been on the receiving side as well as, unfortunately, the giving side of being extremely blunt about what I thought about somebody's idea, and have had the other way too. And sometimes I know when somebody nails it, when you've been saying something and immediately they see the exact flaw in everything that you've been saying, and you've been working on this for 6 months, and they nail you in one sentence, you're like, whoa. And sometimes your immediate reaction is to be, oh no, that's not true. But you have to be, yeah, be careful, and listen, and the other way too. What, again, if you think about why we're here to do extremely good engineering to support the core vision, which is innovation on the internet. So it's okay. It's okay. If somebody nails you, finds the flaw, well then fix it. Fix it. Make it better. Try to get that person to work with you. Maybe say, will you be co-author? But the honesty is very important. Yeah. Having said that, as in this session, remember you're being recorded, and people all over the world can hear what you're saying. So I know sometimes in a heated exchange, and again, I've certainly been guilty of that. You say things that maybe a little more harshly than you might want to do. But remember, it's going to be, especially things like email exchanges, it's going to be there. So try to be careful, try to be polite. You know, I had a book for my daughter when she was young. It was called Human Rights for Children. And it was a lot about, you don't have to share your toys if you don't want to. You do not have to give your sister your favorite dress, but say it in a kind way. You don't have to be walked on, but try, as I say, try to say it kindly. And this is something we talked about a little bit more. Don't be afraid to be a kook. Some ideas may seem very strange at first, and some ideas are very strange. I think we've kind of chatted about, to some people, about people who had the 3-value binary field. Like what? I know. What? The two, they got 0, 1, and what? But the kind of person who can think of a 3rd value of a binary field, they may go on in the future to do something very, very interesting and important. Don't just laugh at people, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of being the one that gets laughed at. I can't tell you how many people laugh at me. I mean, you have to have a little bit of a thick skin. If you truly believe in it, work on the idea and develop it. In India, there was a mathematician, Srinivasa Ramanujan, and he was what's called an autodidact. He taught himself. He was in a very small town in southern India. He redeveloped many of the seminal theorems and proofs for the higher mathematics. And he came from a small village, nobody taught him. Innovation comes from very, very odd places. So respect others and let it come from yourself too. Okay. So now, one of the other things that I hear people talking about is called the old boys club. This is, again, like with the young man who said, well, I didn't get invited to this drinking party, and I'm not an old boy, and that's why my draft doesn't go. You know, it's all these people who know each other, and they've known each other for a long time. Well, you know what? I mean, I'm going to speak as somebody who's not a boy, nor that old, and I managed to get drafts passed when they're good. It's about, again, it really is about the kind of work you do. It's not about whether you go out to drinking parties, whether you're a man or whatever. You know, it's not about that. What actually I think happens is that this is a very, very odd group of people. And it's a group of people where people actually love thinking about and writing protocols and thinking about, they get very, very excited and passionate and care very much about certain algorithms. And that kind of person probably doesn't find that many other people in what I'll call the real world who are like them. And to be honest with you, I'm going to say, you know, I'm going to speak as somebody who feels that they kind of fit into this environment. I mean, I basically am not going to be, you know, if I go to the PTA meeting, none of the gals are going to be wanting to talk about, you know, TLS 1.3 or IPv6. I mean, they're just like not going to be wanting to do that. And so if you come to this environment and other people care very, very passionately about a particular protocol flow, sure, you're going to feel like I found my people. And especially if you find a working group where they totally care about the problem you're going to solve, of course you're going to feel like you've found your people. And then, yeah, it feels like an old boys club. But you know what? If you do a lot of the things that I've said, it won't take long before you're a part of the old boys club too. Yeah. And the other thing is about respect for others and how people and having their approval too. One of the things that I'm going to say is, you know, this takes a lot of work, and a lot of times when you do really good work and one of the icons or one of the experts or people that you respect, they tell you, very good, that was, I mean, things like people saying very good work does not come that often at the IETF. They'll just not say anything, and then that's good. But when somebody actually says, very good job, especially if it's one of the icons, you're like, well, thank you, right? So, as I say, if you feel like there's an old boys club, it's just relief maybe at having found your people. And that's why if you find people being somewhat brutally honest with you and you the other way, it happens. And as I say, I have to. Is it the power? Yeah. We need a hardware guy. The power is. There it goes. Sorry. If you're a new person and you'd like to be part of the motion program, just let me know. We can be in touch with you. let's continue. We talked a little bit about transparency, about not leaving things out. Very, very important. If people see that you're hiding things, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to trust you. Don't say my results are 100% if they're not. Yeah. So it talked a little bit about this integrity, flip-flopping. Your opinion should be your opinion. I may not agree with you, and it's totally okay, but I should know that that's your opinion. Now, this is something, again, is like, can you disagree with people? Of course, but I know some people, some companies even have a policy that you should not disagree with the senior people of your company in public. Well, to me, it's like, what kind of integrity is that? My daughter disagrees with me loudly and all the time, and sometimes she's right. You know, it's okay. It's okay to disagree. The other concept I want to talk about a little bit is called anti-fragile. You guys may know, if you have a garden, that sometimes there's weeds. You try and cut the top down and 5 more come up. That's what we should be. We call them dandelions, you know, is don't be cut down so easily. Don't let one bad word from somebody take you down. You know, rise up again. Make some people, when they have stress, they actually thrive and grow. Be that kind of person. Be a weed. Because we're working for the truth. We're working for the good engineering. It's not about if you said it or not. Leave your ego at the door. So, I'm going to talk about we're running a little bit out of time, so I'm going to talk about some cultural issues and logical fallacies. Sometimes people say it's authority, this person says it, so it has to be right. Well, maybe not. You know, in engineering, you can actually prove that it's good or not. You know, it has nothing to do with it. Some cultures are very traditional, and that's fine. It's fine. Just because you've always done it a certain way doesn't make it right, especially in innovation and engineering. Bandwagon. Just because everybody in the room is humming one way doesn't make that right. Totally feel free to hum the other way if you don't agree. Yeah, think about it. Think about if you're just going with the group. What? Of course. Don't just hum for humming's sake. Yeah. Of course, defend. Yeah. Now we'll talk about some cultural things. I come from an Asian culture that values group harmony. Nothing wrong with that. Group harmony is very good. Group effort is very good. Having said that, it's okay not to be part of a group sometimes. It's okay to disagree. Again, you have a reason. Yeah, not just to disagree. There are cultures that respect their elders. Very good thing to have respect for your elders. Does not mean they're always right. That will hold you back. Innovation doesn't come from always respecting your elders. We would never have left the caves if we always stayed in that place. Some cultures have high structure. They say this is how we are. We have a system, and it's many ways to look at it. Caste, Confucian, you know, you have a structure, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's very non-Western, but there's a huge amount of safety in structure. It's very peaceful. As I say, I come from an Asian culture. High structure can be very let's say, grounding. Having said that, don't be afraid to leave. The community and rough consensus is the decider of what's truth. And if you get that many people from that many different areas, that many points of view, who pretty much agree that you have the right solution, it's probably right. It's probably approaching the right thing to do. There are cultures that value individual achievement. Very good, very fine to have individual achievement. Having said that, it doesn't mean don't collaborate. Some people who value that, you have to get the opinion of the group. It's very hard for some individualistic cultures to think that the group can know more than them. And oftentimes the group will know more than you. Oh, the other thing about individualistic cultures is sometimes it's okay to be very aggressive in the point of in proposing your ideas. That can be very hard. That can feel very harsh to people who come from more group-oriented cultures. So as I say, we're all in this together. We can't have electrical sockets that don't work. We've got to work with each other, and so we need to think about how we're with each other, and being that aggressive sometimes means people are not hearing what you're saying, and you're not getting through. So, as I say, collaboration is sorry, we've had to kind of rush through these last ones. Collaborations is very, very important for these individualistic cultures. When we talk about being equal, it doesn't mean that we're the same. It means that you have a right to your point of view, and good engineering. You might have heard that. We reject kings, presidents, and voting. We believe in rough consensus and running code. That's a very, very important ideal of the IETF. And it has to do with the fundamental non-hierarchical and equal thinking. Care very much about what you're doing. As I say, people will know if you do. Collaboration and listening to others. As I said, we've talked a lot about this. Sorry that I've had to kind of go fast through these last ones. If you make a mistake, then admit that. And you can see there's an example of a slide from an email from somebody who's a very, very strong contributor. And he said very maturely, I reacted to what you said. I'm sorry, I was wrong. That keeps the flow going. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say I made a mistake, or don't be afraid to say I'm going to revise what I'm doing. Be a team player. That means if you don't need agenda time, like right now, I have 10 minutes on an agenda. I only need 5, so I'm going to give it back, and then when another time when you need it, people will give it to you. So don't ask for more than you need. There's notable results of collaboration. And you can see some of the people who helped write this presentation too. And I know Ralph said, he says of DHCP is an incredible effort and collaboration for him. So many other wonderful things have come out as a result of collaboration. I really encourage you to do that. And don't game the system. Don't, people will remember you. It's a small community. Don't try to get all your friends to say, sure, I support this draft, when they've never participated on the list before. People know that. They'll see what you're doing. Again, but on the other hand, if you ask the inner circle to comment on what you're doing, that's actually a very, very good thing. Ask these people. This is again, I've said this sometimes. What doesn't matter at the IETF is the color of your skin, your gender, your political beliefs. None of it matter. Your engineering. you're engineering and doing good work, that matters. If you do bad work, you can blame it on all kinds of other things, but it could be just your bad work. So going out drinking doesn't matter. I don't like to drink. So, but having said that, some of the social aspects that probably matter is don't just huddle in your own little group and talk to nobody else. Try to just meet people. Try to go out with them. It makes it easier to trust, when you go out with people. And people are very open. They say, come on a hike or whatever. Go. Why not? Go. This is something you can look up even on Wikipedia. It's called a collaborative innovation network. And some people feel that this is what the IETF is a network organized around ethical principles, trust, and self-organization, where the knowledge is accessible to everyone, and there's intellectual, internal honesty and transparency. They call that, in the social science world, they call that a coin. And there are people who feel that the IETF is an example of this kind of network. I think there's a lot of truth to that this could be very much how we are. Now, is this very idealistic? Sure. This is aspirational. Yes, I know that sometimes there are very aggressive people who push the agenda of their own companies to the detriment of everything else. People who don't listen to others. But it's worth trying. Again, what we're trying to do is innovation for the internet. So if the IETF doesn't approach being a meritocracy and doesn't approach having the best solutions, it's all going to fall apart. And it doesn't, and it hasn't fallen apart. So we're doing something right. No, it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but I think it's approaching the right way. And a lot of why is because of the values and the beliefs of the IETF. So anyway, my email is in the front. I wish we had more time for discussion. Do email me or catch me around. I'd love to talk to you if you guys have comments on it. The draft is out. If you want to help do more on the draft, if you have opinions, would love to hear them. As I said, it's a living document. So thank you all very much. And if you've not signed up, let me know. And if you want to be a part of the other mentoring events that we do, please let me know. We do lots of things, and we'd love to have you, and welcome to the new people.